Good evening. Welcome to the April 14th, 2026 meeting of the Planning Commission. And we have a big group today, so I hope we'll all be respectful of each other. We'll try to move things as quickly as we can. We're going to start with review of our agenda.
Well, how about roll call?
Well, thank you.
It's just a suggestion.
Let's do roll call.
All right. Stiles.
Here.
Zaremski.
Here.
Green.
Here.
DeVore Leonard.
Here.
Osterholm.
Here.
Also present is Solicitor Amy Blankenship and Planning and Economic Development Coordinator Erin Arellano.
Thank you, Judy. Jump in any other time.
Hey. Enthusiasm's good.
So, reviewing the agenda, are there any other items anyone has?
Well, I just had a question. I thought we were going to talk about goal stuff. Is that so? When I mean, I know that it's not on there, but
It is in the minutes that we were going to. I'm wondering if perhaps we think that this is going to be a very long meeting.
No, that's fine. I'm just noting that. So then, can we put it on next month's meeting?
Absolutely.
I was kind of counting on it because we have council commission stuff that we're going to talk about next time. So I'm going to tell them that we don't have goals yet, but that we'll come back to it.
If we have time, we'll look at it. But it is in the minutes. It's about on the last page where DeVore Leonard stated the following: a council goals prioritization. Well, that's the council. In it anyway, you did say you wanted us to talk about goals,
So let's see when the main topic wraps up.
yeah.
Well, it's not on the agenda for this time,
Yes,
so we're not going to do it this time. So now I'm just saying, but just noting it, and definitely next time.
Okay, goals
Okay.
next time. We will definitely put that on. Thank you. Okay. Then let's review the minutes. Does anyone have any corrections, changes, additions to the minutes? If not, do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
A second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. We have then a lot of communications, and my counting may not be correct. I had around 48 letters supporting this conditional use application, and about 14 that are opposed. And of course, we've read them. Some came in later, and maybe just for information for people, that it is always helpful if you get your letters in timely, because the ones that came in yesterday or today, it's like we may not necessarily have as much time to read them. So just be aware of that for the future. So now we come to council and committee reports. Active transportation. Gary, do you have anything?
No report. There was a meeting last month, and the group had not met since, I believe, November, and there's sort of a degree of reorganization still happening. We're actually meeting tomorrow, and we'll see if we make a little more progress in reorganizing.
Okay. Maybe we'll have a report next time.
Yeah, hopefully.
Gavin, do you have a report from council?
Yeah. So on March the 16th, there was a request for increased signage around Mills Lawn and Yellow Springs High School has been referred, and that request has been referred. So choice one is doing a professional recommendation. Recommendation should be available late April, early May. On April the 6th, council granted one-year extensions to Windsor Group for the final plans for 2 PUDs located on what was previously Antioch property. Sorry, this is the Student Union, what is it officially called? The Unity Village?
Unity.
Yeah. And then the Kettering Building, which is also Unity Village? Or does it have a different name?
It has a different name.
A name that I'm messing up, and I'm sorry. Eric Alfieri stated, from the Windsor Group, stated that the final plan will likely be presented to Planning Commission sooner than 1 year from the August 2027 deadline. So they basically said, we think we're going to need past this deadline. We're hoping not to go a whole year. We're going to keep you posted. On March the 9th, council held a housing retreat. It was a 6-hour meeting that covered a wide range of housing topics and was geared toward better understanding the complex issue, where staff and council members stand regarding possibilities for addressing housing in the village. If you're somebody who's been really interested in housing in the village, I'd say watch it. It's like there's lots of it's the start of lots of conversations, and then I think we have a lot more work to do on many, many topics. At the next council meeting, we'll be doing some prioritization and doing a little bit more, thinking about next steps, so.
And did you have anything or talk about anything that you want to send to planning to work on?
The short answer is no, not yet.
Okay.
But I think this is where that interplay of like goals with what does this body want and then what does council want at this next meeting on the 20th, right?
18th.
18th. We're going over council commissions and one of the pieces is talking about goals. So the hope is that like when I go and say planning commission, then anybody on council that says, hey, I'd like you to consider doing that. That then I would bring that back here and eventually we would land on something that we all agree on. And similarly for environmental commission and public arts and so forth.
My mistake, I was in May. It's the 20th.
Okay, April 20th. Don't come April 18th.
It'll be Saturday.
Okay.
Great. Okay, any questions for Gavin? Okay, then we're at the place in our agenda where we have citizens' comments. Now, these are comments for anything that is not on our agenda. So it's not the conditional use permit. It's anything else that you'd like to come up and talk about. And today, we're going to limit comments to 2 minutes. And just be aware that just for 2 minutes, is there anyone who wants to come forward right now? Go ahead, Sam. And I do want to ask, when you do come forward, also tell us your address.
And name.
Well, of
I'm
course.
Sam Eckenrode. I live at 1126 Livermore Street, and I didn't want to interrupt, but the first housing thing was on April 9th, so if people want to watch that, April 9th, not March 9th.
Is that what I said?
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's fine. And I just wanted to observe that it's great to see so many people here because many changes are afoot in our village, and it really helps when people participate. So I'm excited to see it because it's a hot time in our little village.
Great. Thank you, Sam. Okay. Any other general comments that anyone wants to make? If not, then we'll go ahead to what we're here about, the conditional use permit. And I just want to say a little something before. That, as I mentioned, that we've had, all of these letters. And I do want to make people aware, we're not here to determine how valuable this daycare center is, because it is clear that and I think I speak for everyone, that it is very valuable. It is very meaningful for the children in the community, that it's a wonderful business. We would like it to continue, but that's not what we're here for. We are here to determine that if an RA location at 1333 President Street is the proper location to be putting a daycare group through a conditional use permit if it's compatible to that. That's what we're here for. And so I just want you to know that we're not saying, whatever we determine, and I have no idea because I'm here to listen, to ask questions, and then to make a decision. Whatever our decision will be, it doesn't mean that we do not value this, that it is clearly a wonderful, wonderful daycare center and has done much for this community, and I would hope that it will continue. So,
As well as we value everybody's opinion. I mean, that's what this meeting's all about, is for everybody to participate.
so now I will turn it over to Aaron to talk about the conditional use request.
Thank you, Susan. Aaron Arlano, Planning Economic Development Coordinator here. So just to start, this is a conditional use application for a group daycare at 1333 President Street. Property is zoned RA, low density residential. Nicole Gay is the applicant present here, and Matthew Morgan is the property owner who authorized the request today. Adjoining property owners were mailed notice on March 31st, 2026. Signs were posted on the property on April 3rd, and notice was published in the Yellow Springs News also on April 3rd. A staff report outlining the applicable code was provided to Planning Commission and posted to the village website for the public ahead of this meeting. The request on the vicinity map shown is to operate a licensed in-home group daycare within the existing single-family dwelling as shown. Group daycare is a conditional use in the RA district and is defined as a private home providing care for between 7 to 12 children for periods of less than 24 hours. The applicant is proposing no exterior changes to the structure. Interior modifications as proposed in the application will occur primarily in the basement to accommodate classroom space, with a portion of the first floor to be used as a multi-purpose area for dining and parent meetings. The daycare, as proposed, will operate from Monday to Friday between 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., with staggered drop-off between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m., and pickup between 3 to 4 p.m., with limited extended care until 5 p.m. The total children will not exceed 12, and that will be consistent with the code. Families will be required to follow structured drop-off and pickup schedules, including driveway use protocols, posted speed expectations enforced through contractual agreements. And as we get there, Nicole Gay can talk more about that later on. The applicant is also requesting a modification to the required off-street parking. Based on Village Code Section 126402, the use would typically require 4 spaces plus 1 per employee. However, due to the nature of the use, including a short duration, as I talked about earlier, for drop-off and pickup, the application is requesting a reduction in this required parking. The site also includes a large U-shaped driveway in the front, as you can see there, kind of on that map there. It's expected to accommodate vehicle circulation for drop-off and pickup. And just to note, the only employees are the residents of the home, and those 2 garage spaces currently at the house will be available for their use. In general, from a standard standpoint, the use is permitted as a conditional use in the RA district. The use may be compatible with the surrounding residential character if operated as proposed. The site serves by existing infrastructure and no additional public improvements will be required. Regarding this parking modification, staff finds that operational characteristics of the use and the existing driveway configuration may support a reduction in parking as Planning Commission deems so. Staff will provide a neutral recommendation for this application. Should Planning Commission choose to approve, staff recommends the following conditions. Provide and enforce an official drop-off and pickup plan, schedule, and protocol consistent with the draft plan submitted as Exhibit F, I believe it was, to ensure all families comply with the set schedule. Obtain a certificate of occupancy prior to operation, and obtain a sign permit prior to installation of any signage should there be any on the property. The applicant, Nicole Gay, as I mentioned, is here tonight and can speak further to the proposal, and I'm available for any questions.
I wanted to ask you first of why you're making a neutral recommendation. Because always before when something comes before planning, staff are encouraging us to approve it. And this is a neutral one, so I wondered why.
Yeah, just the reasoning was, as staff, including me, of course, as we reviewed it, we couldn't really determine based on our staff review in the code for a sure answer. And I kind of wanted to leave it up to Planning Commission, given this is a final approval of it. It won't go through Village Council. It just goes through you guys as the commission. I wanted to leave it to you guys based on staff findings.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Erin at this point?
Well, I guess I don't know if this is the right time, so stop me if not.
I'll
but
tell you if it's not.
Okay. I just, there are other in-home daycares in town, and I guess I'm just, have we had complaints about them in residential areas?
So I will say from my experience, because I've only been here a little over a year, I have not received any from any other in-home daycares and residentials.
We did have a letter in the packet from one that's run up on Omar Circle, and the woman that sent it in said she hasn't had any problems, or that she's heard of anything up there, on the
And
one
did
up
she
there.
say how many children she had?
It wasn't from the daycare, it was a neighbor.
Okay.
I think she might just have 6 because she
Okay.
has infants.
Because they have to come through conditional use
Yeah.
for most for A, B, I'm not sure for C.
So if
No, they
it's
do. And they-
6 or
They do for C?
under,
They only-
that's a different.
Six or under, they don't have to. Okay, so this one is going to be larger.
Okay, so there's not any other that are this size, basically?
Not that I am aware of.
Okay, cool, thank you.
However, there have been, in the years that I've lived here, there's been at least 2 of them. There was one down on, I think on Miami Drive, that probably had a dozen. 2 of my kids went there for years.
Okay.
You know, that was, probably had a full 12 on a smaller lot. And then somebody in recent years, since I've been in Planning Commission, did something similar for a couple years up on Whitehall or Northwood Drive. Also went through here, and there were a couple conditions that had to be met. So there have been some periodically.
Okay.
And also, as far as I know, there never had been any issues with any of them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Aaron? If not, then I'm going to ask the gays to come forward and tell us anything you want. Tell us, what your plans are, and we may ask you questions then too. And if you'll come up and speak there.
Susan, I'm going to have you swear him in. What? I'm going to have you swear him in.
Okay, and I am going to, while you're there, and everybody in the audience, I'm going to swear you in, because everybody who comes up needs to be sworn in. So, first I need to find what I'm going to swear you in with.
Sorry, Susan. Yeah, anyone who's going to be speaking to the commission
Okay.
tonight needs to be sworn in.
Yes.
So you'll participate in what she's about to administer. See how I filled the air for you there?
Okay. Do you swear, so everybody, get ready, put up your hand.
Get ready to get
Speak, and
sworn.
I assume it's going to be everybody here. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth in matters before this board? Say, I do.
I do.
Okay. And so if you will introduce yourselves, and then I'll say more later.
Okay. I'm Nicole Gay.
I'm Brian Gay.
We have been operating Open Air Village since August of 2020. We opened during the height of the pandemic as families were seeking alternative childcare and preschool during a time where they were really worried about having children indoors. So we had, for a long time, been considering opening our own center where we primarily focused on outdoor nature-based education. And when we had the opportunity to operate at Antioch, we felt like it was the perfect timing for us. So we have had a great record over the past 6 years. We are licensed by the Department of Youth Services. And we, with asking for conditional use, that is part of the conditions set forth by the Department of Youth Services. We are only allowed to have 12 children at any given time if we were to operate from our home. Currently, we have about 14 to 15 children at a time, so that would be scaling down for us. In previous years, we've even also had 2 classrooms, but due to what has been happening with Antioch and we had some commitments made to us from the Windsor Corporation that we had thought we would be secure in our location, which didn't happen for us. So we naturally began to scale down. So while I think that there has been an idea that some people have said we simply could have gone somewhere else, that wasn't quite accurate. So we were placed in this position in short notice, and we explored many different options. We toured different buildings in the village, which we found would not adhere to fire code that's applicable to child care centers. Spaces that were available did not have any green space available to us. People that offered some available land would require significant funding to build. And then we even reached out to Glen Helen Nature Preserve. And while they were very open-minded and we loved the idea of being able to operate from there, they did not have any sites available to us that we could call our own. We would have to pack up and move for each and every event that they held in those spaces. Some of those spaces did not even have indoor plumbing. So that just was not feasible for us. And then I just would like to say that while we would have loved to continue having center-based care, A home-based program is likely going to be a short-term solution for us. If given the chance, we hope that we're going to be able to grow and save and one day build a permanent space. But unfortunately, that's just not where we are at right now. So in hearing neighbors' concerns, we have in advance come up with different plans and procedures for parking and for traffic. We have a handbook that each family is required to read and sign and adhere to at the beginning of each school year. And we were able to add in what we would want in that handbook to be good neighbors. Some of the things that we are asking the parents to do in the future would be not to participate in any street parking. We would only allow parking in the U-shaped driveway. And while that driveway can hold upwards of 10 to 12 cars, we would space drop-off and pickup time so that only 4 cars at a time should be in the driveway. So during registration, families will choose the assigned pickup time in 20-minute increments that would best fit their schedule. Also, though, be mindful that parents with young children cannot always stay 100% on those schedules. So we would hope that there would not be,
Like some kind of hard rule?
yeah, like we can't have more than 4 in our driveway, but that would be what we're hoping to do. We have a designated entrance and exit for the driveway. That's has been helpful for just our everyday life anyway. But all cars would have to enter through the south side entrance and only go one way. The procedure would be that all cars pull completely forward into the right side of the driveway so that those leaving can pull around safely. And then just with all of our other safety policies, families that are not able to adhere to those would have a conference where we would discuss ways to remediate those problems. And if families for some reason are not able to go below the speed limit or adhere to drop-off and pickup times, that would be grounds for dismissal from the program. Is there anything to add?
No, just, we probably do need a little time to like try out different configurations, and I mean, we've talked about putting like little signs or chalking out parking spots or like cones or something, so it might not be exactly like verbatim how we do it, but it should be something similar, so.
Is that all you have at this point?
That's good.
At this point, yes. And if there is time later, I do have something, more to say, but it's not procedural.
So I have a question. You started this thing by looking for a space that could have the kids outside. So what percentage of the time are the kids going to be outside?
That's a great question. It really depends on the season. So when we are in these beautiful weather months like spring, the children are like today. The children are dropped off outdoors. We have a set boundary in place where we're at in McGregor Hall. There's, if you have gone by there by the Wellness Center, you'll see that we have temporary fencing up, and teachers are assigned to a certain amount of children. It's all, it's very safe. How should I say?
Structured.
Yeah, it's very structured and orderly, but the children will start their day off outside. After we have our morning meetings and a morning snack or read a story or some art projects, a lot of times we will take walking field trips. Today we went to Glen Helen. And I have heard some concerns that there are people who think it may not be safe for children to walk on President Street. It is a very short distance that they would be walking on President Street to get to the sidewalk that would take us near Antioch Farm or to the sidewalks that would take us to Glen Helen. And part of our program is really enforcing safety rules with the children. We do have screening before the school year begins, and families go on a preliminary hike with us to see if their child is a good fit for the program. If there are children who are not in the developmental stage where they can stay with a group due to any kind of outside factors, then they are not permitted or admitted into the program. So the children do have to have a certain level of awareness to be with us. So we have procedures in which one teacher is in the very front of the line, one is in the back, one is in the middle, and we have never had anybody.
Yeah, we've never had an issue with
Right, so
transportation.
the children, it's not like the children are out there walking around by themselves.
Absolutely not.
We've walked them into town.
I was raised down in that area of town. I came off of Corey Street on the S curve, so Glenn, I walked down Pleasant all the time when I was young, so
Yeah.
I didn't get hit by a car. I'm here today.
Well, and like today, we,
They tried. I'm not saying they didn't try.
to get to Glen Helen, we walk on the bike path. Now, I think sometimes you'll notice families walking on the bike path where the children are all over the place, and they're not watching out for the bicycles. It does not matter if there is not a bike in sight. Our children are always practicing being on the complete right side. They walk between the grass and the berm, and it's a core piece of our program is that structure. So we feel very comfortable with the safety on the street. But to get back to your question about how much of the day is outdoors, on a day like today, the children were indoors for about 2 to 3 hours. And that was just for...
Or 8 hours.
Of our 8 hours. That was for transitions, like restroom breaks and rest time. So the children do take naps at the same time each and every day. They will always be inside at those times. Now, in the winter months, we start our days off indoors. And then after we've gone through our morning routine and had our snack, then we do what we call gear up. We all get ready together, where children practice things like putting on their own overalls and their own boots and zipping up their own coats. And they learn those skills for getting ready for the outdoors. So in the winter months, I would say we spend about 2 hours in the morning and about 2 hours in the afternoon outdoors.
And do you have any policies about noise?
Unofficially. So we practice, our children are respectful. And I did hear something concerning that there was an idea that we encourage children to scream all day at the top of their lungs. That is the farthest thing from the truth. I would not want to work someplace like that. There are times if the children get extremely excited and they begin screaming while they're running, we go next to them and we approximate them and we get down to their level and we say, when you scream in that way, it sounds like you're hurt. It sounds like you need help. We talk to children like they are full people. They understand us.
And that's just kind of the hard rule is, we save screaming like that for if you're scared or hurt.
Now, our children laugh. They laugh, and I hope that's not offensive to ears. Every once in a while, of course, children cry when they get hurt, and we comfort them through that. But the notion that these children are going to be outside screaming all day, running wild and going over people's fences and into their fish ponds is absolutely absurd. If we were ever to have a child go off of our property or even away from our group, we would force legal action.
You got liability issues.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, we are trained in active supervision of children. That's just one of our many trainings that we take every single year. As early childhood teachers, we constantly have a count going in our head. We're constantly counting the children. We know we have 12 today, and even the children will count each other each morning for part of our morning routine, and we're always talking about who we have here today. And we do name to face to make sure we've never lost anyone. So we're very well aware where every child is at all times. We do not lose children.
Nicole, I have a question.
Yes.
So right now you're at McGregor. Any chance you could continue being there?
They did not offer us a lease past May. It was just a temporary location they offered to us. Unfortunately, in our space at Sontag Fells, not only were we told that we were not able to stay there because they planned to demolish it, but at the beginning of the school year, we had our annual fire inspection that we always comply with, and during that fire inspection, they found that the fire notification system was down in our building. So that meant we had to very quickly leave our space within a matter of weeks to open up at McGregor Hall. Unfortunately, during our time at McGregor Hall, there have been times where we thought, we could really stay here. Maybe we should pull and push to stay here. But unfortunately, Antioch College has shown us in many different ways that they are not able to host us. Recently, there was water coming into the building.
Another roof leak.
More roof leaks like was happening at our old building. And even with parents writing in with concern, they did not address our concerns. They really just swept our concerns under the rug. And we don't feel heard, and we don't feel like they will support us.
I have one other question about this new location. Have you thought of anything for sound mitigation?
So there are natural barriers that will mitigate sound, tree lines and bushes and things like that. We do have ideas for planting more native plants that would continue to block out some sound.
Fencing's also an option. That kind of all depends on the route we are allowed to take. There's certain fencing requirements for the childcare license that we would apply for, so we would need to talk to our licensing specialist to see what's required and then what's allowed for the property and things
Okay,
like
so
that.
you're saying that if this would be approved, you're going to be required to have some fencing. Is that what you're saying?
We're required to have a physical barrier to keep the children from running, I forget the wording of it.
Okay.
It's to keep them on the lot and out of the street, essentially.
Yeah.
We're not sure how much, there's a pretty defined hedge line around the yard, and we're not sure if that counts as a physical barrier. We have looked into different fencing options. It would kind of, if we have 6 kids or less, then that requirement is no longer there.
Yeah.
And if we have 7 or more, then we would kind of have to see what we could find that checks all the boxes for the licensing
thank you.
requirements. So.
I have a couple questions, and at least one sort of ties in with this. So the whole thing with noise abatement comes down to where you anticipate most of your outdoor activity will be at that location. Will it be in the backyard?
Yes.
Versus, okay, because the backyard, especially if there's some sort of containment to it, you're quite a ways from the street, and just noise attenuates dramatically with distance.
Right.
And
It is a 1.6 acre lot also, which I
it's a
think
huge piece of property.
Great.
Yeah.
Should
Yeah.
kind of be factored into.
By chance, I went by there this morning. I was on a bike ride, and I had a sound level meter on my phone, actually. And all my academic work was in acoustics, so I couldn't resist. And what I found quite interesting, there was lawn service going on, and I won't mention numbers at all, but when they were near the street, it was dramatically different than when they were 50 feet away. And so if you're back behind the house, that, especially if you do some plantings, perhaps with evergreens of sorts that keep their foliage on year-round, that would do quite a bit in terms of the noise abatement. The other thing I'm wondering, because there's also been a lot of concern about traffic, but most of the letters that I've read associated with traffic are making the assumption that every child will be delivered in an individual car, okay? And I'm assuming that you have some cases that people are bringing multiple children to the program, perhaps even carpooling. There might be a handful of people who live close enough that they can walk there, and there'll be some during the nicer weather that are able to transport on bicycle with trailers and all. And would you have, based on your experience and what you've already done, do you have a really rough sense in terms of how that might reduce car traffic? Would you basically, relative to one kid per car, would you maybe ongoing be more like 3/4, 75%, or is even that ambitious?
That might be a little ambitious.
Okay, but so there'll be a small, but not
There is, yeah.
but not a
It
major
also depends on
reduction.
year. Sometimes.
Yeah,
we've had
middle of the
5, 6
winter,
siblings,
yeah.
And it's very, we have less families. currently, I think we have 2 sets of siblings, so it would be,
Okay, so it's
and yeah,
limited.
depending on schedules, the days might be lighter, like we might not have the full 12 children
Yeah.
all day, we might not have 12 children Monday through Friday.
Yeah,
It could be like 12 on Monday, Wednesday, 10 Tuesday, Thursday.
right. And kids get sick and families go on vacation
Absolutely.
and all that
It's
sort of
honestly
thing.
very rare that we have every single child there every day.
Yeah, right.
It-
Do you have 2 sessions a day, though? Do you have some kids that are there for the morning and then
So
different
that was
group
kind
come
of
in the
a
afternoon?
misconception. We have an AM only session where those kids are picked up after lunch, like 12 to 12:30, and then they leave for the day, but we don't have anybody that arrives
Okay.
in the afternoon.
Okay.
But to clarify, we do have the after-school program, which is extremely small. I'm saying some days
Picked up
it's
3
between,
kids today.
yeah, he picked up 3 kids today. The most we ever have is like 4 or 5. Those children would be dropped off by school bus from Mills Lawn. Right now, Brian does walk with them.
Yeah, I walk up.
But being a little bit further away, they would qualify for busing. But we basically subtract the number of children who go home at noon, and then that is the amount of children we are allowed to accept for after-school care.
Right.
So can I just follow up on that and clarify, because there was a bunch of letters about that. So you're saying there are a maximum of 12 kids in one day?
Right, so that would be, I mean,
Or at any given
At
time.
any given time.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
so there might be, okay, so there is some, because the number, there was one point it was 96, and then it was 48, and so it sounds like the normal thing would be roughly
I would say
12 during the main day, and then in the school time, there would be maybe, it sounds like 4 or 5, so maybe up to 20 potential cars going in and out, or 20 kids that need to be picked up and dropped off, so then somewhere around 40 at the max
per day?
per day.
No, that would be double. We'd be like half of that.
Okay, can you just run the math, like how would it work?
I guess assuming everybody comes in a single kid in a car, that would be 12 drop-offs in the morning. Then we would have usually 3 to 4 pickups afternoon, and then we would have our after-school group that joins in later. So then you would have the remaining 8 kids from the morning. They would be picked up. So I guess that's something else. Their pickup is between 3 and 4, and then the school age pickup is between 4 and 5. So that already kind of like splits the pickup window.
And then something to note is that children in our after-school program, they're mostly alumni, and most of them
siblings.
also have siblings. So they are getting picked up with a preschooler anyway.
Okay.
So yeah, I would say, 12, 16, I guess probably about 24, like ins and outs, like if you count
Yeah.
car coming in, car
Okay.
coming out.
Okay, my question right now has to do with supplies and stuff like that. Do you have that delivered, or you guys pick that up on your own? And if you do have deliveries, is this going to be like a ongoing thing, or just as you need?
Yeah, we don't use Weirder Groceries. We just order them with our normal like Kroger drop-off that gets
Okay.
delivered.
It's once a week.
And then, yeah, Amazon packages every now and then for supplies.
So just like residential people, pretty much?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing, well, and really, all of that's always come through our house anyways, because we never had like a real door at
Right.
our old building.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that got clarified.
So we just always had it sent home.
Thank you.
I had another question, because this is something that came up in the letters. Did you have a meeting for all the families in the neighborhood? Did you invite all the families in the neighborhood?
So early on, we had gotten wind that a few of our nearby neighbors had concerns. We initially looked into this.
When you said early on, how long, what sort of time frame?
I believe.
It was
November?
about November when
Okay.
we looked into what it would take to get conditional use.
Yeah.
It was accidentally accelerated and published in the paper, so some of our neighbors did find out about it a bit prematurely. So we talked to them through email and told them that we would be in touch should we decide to move forth. In early March, I spoke with Lauren Shows, and she put out an article talking about our transition. And that was one way that we wanted to make neighbors aware of what was going on. But at the same time, I also emailed 3 neighbors in particular that I did know had concerns. And they are the ones that constructed the petition. And when we reached out through email, they had some questions for me. And I wanted to have a third party present in order to talk through these things. So I had gotten in touch with Village Mediation Services. And, you know, although we have very busy schedules, I did say, give me any time and we will make ourselves available to get together. And then we never heard back from them.
I think, though, in terms of obligation per the code and whatever, the only communication that's required is Aaron sending out a notice 7 days before this hearing.
The noticing to residents nearby.
The residents nearby, excuse me, yeah.
The sign noticing, if we're going to count that, and then, the Wise News.
Yeah, right.
That's
So,
right, but we're still permitted to ask them if they had any meetings with the neighbors.
right, but there, even if they did, there wasn't an obligation to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah, it
It's
was not.
let's say it's a courtesy if they did that. Okay.
And are other questions? And you said you had a statement. Do you want to go ahead with your statement?
Yeah, I do. And I have said some of these things, but I did talk about how we would have loved to continue center-based care, that a home-based model is likely short-term for us. But going through this application, what has been especially difficult for us is seeing fear shape the narrative around this program. There's the fears of children running wild, climbing into neighbors' yards, fears of traffic forcing pedestrians into ditches, and that just can't be further from the truth. So since opening in 2020, our work has been grounded in nurturing children to feel confident in themselves, to learn self-regulation, to resolve conflict, and to build a meaningful connection with the natural world. Our children aren't behind screens. They aren't being drilled endlessly on numbers and letters. They are creating. They are becoming artists, readers, leaders, and small, capable versions of their future selves. The sounds you might hear are not chaos, but community. Our morning circle where we sing songs, we greet each child by name, we stretch toward the sky, we thank the sun, and we remind ourselves, I am smart, I am kind, I am loved, I am going to have a good day. These are the children who grow into neighbors you want to live beside. People who care for others and for the environment because they've been taught to do so from the very beginning. Just as Brian and I raise our own 2 children to be respectful citizens, we extend that same care into each and every child in our program. We will continue to listen, to communicate, and to meet our neighbors halfway whenever we can. But we won't apologize for standing up for what we believe in. We know in our hearts that Open Air Village is a benefit to this community. And as Fred Rogers once said, look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping. We strive to be those helpers in our community, contributing in small but meaningful ways each day. We owe it to the children, to their families, and to the next generation to advocate for high-quality early childhood education. Give us the chance to show you, because it does truly take a village, and this village has shown up. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank
You can sit down now.
Okay.
Okay, we are now going to open up the public hearing. And let me say with the public hearing, again, people can speak for 2 minutes. Judy will be keeping time, and when you hear the ding, it's time for you to leave, because there's many of you. I also want to tell you that you're going to be speaking to the commission. It's not an interactive type of thing, and we're not going to be responding to you. We're going to be listening. When you're all done, we will talk among ourselves and may have some questions, may direct them at the gays again, or for Aaron, or for Amy. So we'll go ahead with the, open the public hearing, and just feel free to come up. Remember to say your name, and please do say your address also. Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'd be happy to start this off. I'm Maddie Fitch, 4449 East Enon Road, Yellow Springs, Ohio. I am an open air village parent. My daughter is a current open air villager, and I hope that my son will one day also be an open air villager. I'd like to speak to two of the main concerns that seem to have come out of the letters of opposition, and to support some of the things that Nicole and Brian were saying. One is about noise. Nicole and Brian talked about how structured the children's days are. These children, yes, they are joyful, they are having fun, but they are busy at work. They are building structures and making cakes in the sandbox, and they are drawing, and so they are very earnestly engaged in what they are doing. So my daughter will come home and show me like yoga poses that she learned at school. So just to reiterate, like these children are not going wild. They are very focused in their play. And the other point that I wanted to speak to, it seemed like a lot of the concerns were about changing the character of the neighborhood. And I understand that it's a beautiful neighborhood. It's this beautiful natural space. And I understand not wanting anything to interfere with being able to see the deer or hear the bird song. And I wanted to add that is what makes Open Air Village so compatible with this neighborhood, because the children are being taught to appreciate that type of natural space. And so rather than being a detriment to that space, these children will actually be appreciating this neighborhood character. And that's all I want to say, and my 2 minutes are over. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Allison Klein. I am outside the village at... Oh, yes. Is this on?
The mic goes to, please don't touch the mic. The mic just goes to the world at large, so
But
you just have to speak louder.
that's
Okay.
better now, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Use your outdoor voice.
You don't get the opportunity often.
My name is Allison Klein. I live at 2947 Ambrosia Lane in Xenia. My 3 daughters have attended Open Air Village for the last 5 years collectively. And it has been my pleasure to know Nicole and Brian Gay in that time. If I look at you, I'm going to cry, though. They are very kind. They are conscientious. They are very intelligent people. And they have demonstrated time and again how flexible they are and how well they adapt to any challenges that they face. I have no doubt that doing an in-home daycare at this location is compatible and that it will be a success. I do not see the neighborhood being impacted in any negative way. I'm confident in this because I've seen Nicole and Brian operate for the last 5 years. And when something doesn't work, they change it. If something is not safe, they swiftly correct it. And if anyone ever has a concern, they open their doors and their hearts to hearing them out and working together to reach a solution. I have also witnessed their outdoor presence for those 5 years. And it is, as everyone has stated, not children running wild with no consequences. They have rules, they have schedules, they have expectations for behavior, and those have always been upheld. I have never picked up my children in the last 5 years and felt that they were not being carefully supervised, that they were unsafe, or that they were being excessively loud. I would just ask that anyone who has doubts beyond tonight, should this be approved, to take it up with Nicole and Brian on a personal level, because they will allow you to come out and see how they teach, and they will show you that what they're doing is good for the neighborhood and will add to the neighborhood's character.
And that was the timer that went off.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Hi, my name is Brett Knickerbocker. I live on 2678 Sutton Road in Xenia Township, formerly on 327 West Davis. I'm currently a landlord on West Davis and pay taxes there. My 4-year-old daughter goes to Open Air, and my 2-year-old son hopefully will soon. I'd like to attest to 2 points. The first is the great lengths that Brian and Nicole have gone to make their current situation functioning. I don't believe this is a decision they've made lightly. I truly believe and have seen them exercise and attempt every other option painstakingly. So I believe this is a perfect use for this conditional permit. It's conditional, it's temporary, and it fills a very, very necessary void for this daycare. And as everyone knows here, it can be revoked at any time, and it's temporary. It's a perfect use for it. I'm a businessman and attorney by trade, so I completely value the value of homes in the area. I know how important that is, and I think the conditional use permit can protect that value through the process. My second point is I wanted to I think everyone in the room can get a glimpse of it, but Nicole and Brian are such gentle humans. They fit perfectly into this community. They are trustworthy. I know you don't get to have dinner with them, but I have seen them for years, and they are the most trustworthy, gentle, kind Yellow Springers you have ever met. They are our people. This is not going to go off the rails, and I encourage you to trust them, and I hope you will trust me in trusting them. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Larissa. I live at 165 Edgefield Drive, and I have been a Yellow Springs community member since 2009 when I moved here to do my undergraduate work, and have since decided to stay here and raise my family here. I know that you said that this is more about logistics than it is value. I will touch on both hopefully here, and I just want to say that in small communities like ours, we often talk about wanting to be family-friendly, community-minded, and supportive of our children. And those are really meaningful words, but moments like this are where we decide whether those values are real, in practice. High-quality early childhood spaces are not easy to find, and they matter immensely. The earliest years of life, when our children build confidence, emotional security, social skills, curiosity, and their sense of belonging in the world. Programs that nurture those foundations do more than serve individual families. They strengthen our entire community. Nicole and Brian have created that kind of place, and they have built a program centered on care, connection, and developmentally appropriate learning. It is the kind of environment many parents hope for and that few are very fortunate enough to find. My own family has benefited directly from their work through our oldest child's experience this year, and it has made meaningful impact on his life. We hope that our second child will have that same opportunity. I also want to speak directly to the concerns around traffic and neighborhood safety. My family lives in this part of town. We walk these streets and bike these streets on a daily basis and raise our children there. And we understand the concern because we share it. We care deeply about safe roads, thoughtful driving, and preserving the everyday livability of our neighborhood. And if I've ever yelled at any of you to slow down on Edgefield, I'm sorry, but I'll do it again. That is exactly why I believe this program can exist responsibly here. The families involved are parents of young children who understand caution and care, and the program itself is a small, intentional, and structured program. I understand that neighbors want to preserve their peace and character of their street, and that desire is valid. Oh, okay, sorry. And it comes from caring about where they live. So that's valid.
I'm sorry, can you give your last name? Can you give your last name?
Indigo.
Thank you.
Next, and just feel free to come up. Anybody else wanting to speak? You will.
Hi, my name's Sylvia Ellison. I live at 322 Allen Street. My sister and I own and have another family member of ours living in one of the homes adjacent to the property being discussed, and this isn't going to be very interesting. I'm really just wondering if at some point someone can follow up and we can get the rest of the pages, because they're not all here. And that was just kind of driving me nuts, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Sylvia. Anyone else?
Jason Christopher Levesque, 545 Fairfield Pike. Good evening. My name is Jason Levesque, and I'm here in support of Open Air Village. I just want to start by saying I do understand why some neighbors have concerns, and I think it's fair for those concerns to be heard, traffic safety, noise. I understand why people would want answers. But it's my understanding that the question in front of the commission isn't whether everybody around it is comfortable with it, and it's not whether people can imagine worst possible version of it. It's whether this actual application can meet the conditional use standards and whether reasonable conditions can be put in place if you feel they're needed. It's also my understanding that group daycare is already listed in Yellow Springs Code as a conditional use in residential districts. So to me, that means the village has already decided this kind of use can be appropriate in a neighborhood under the right circumstances. So I don't think the question is whether a preschool like this belongs in a neighborhood at all. I think the question is whether it can operate responsibly at this location. And honestly, gotta catch my breath. A lot of what I've heard sounds like people reacting to what they're afraid it could become, not necessarily what's actually being asked for right now. I just don't think neighborhood opposition by itself should be treated as proof that the standards can't be met. It's also my understanding that this commission has the ability to approve something like this with reasonable conditions and even revisit it later if there are actual problems. So this doesn't feel like an all or nothing decision to me. If there are reasonable concerns about drop-off, pickup, parking, or operations, those things can be addressed in a way that protects the neighbors without shutting down a program that clearly means a lot to families in this community. I'm also speaking as a parent. My son, Elliot over here, has gone to Open Air Village, and I can say firsthand, it has been amazing for him. He has grown so much there. It's not just childcare. It's thoughtful, it's intentional, and it's been a really meaningful program for our family. So I just hope the commission looks at the actual application, the actual standards, and whether there are reasonable ways to address concerns instead of just defaulting to denial. I really believe Open Air Village is a positive thing for kids and positive thing for the community. And I respectfully ask them to approve it.
Well played, sir.
Hi, my name is Kelly Patron. I live at 4083 Kyle Road in Cedarville. My daughters have collectively gone to Open Air Village for the last 4 to 6 years, and I have had the opportunity to volunteer numerous times at the center, and whether it was hatching baby chicks, checking out how to identify maple trees. I'm trying to think of all the fun things we've done. Natural tie-dyeing. I can honestly say in all of those years, there's never been an issue with sound. I know that's a big concern, and I can understand that, people living in the community. But even, so yeah, I'm gonna make this short and sweet. Just, there's never been an issue with any, with the kids being crazy or out of control. And I hope that the community and those around can really understand that and just take the time to really soak that in and how wholesome and wonderful this opportunity for the community is. So, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Henry Lapp. I live at 1340 President, right across the street. And I've heard a number of things I'd like to just clear up, but I'm not going to use them. We got the email saying we're not going to communicate because what they sent us was the village has strongly suggested. And that's inappropriate. I talked to the lady that ran village mediation for the last 5 years. She said that's not what they do. It's not what mediation is about. And are they mediating for the village? And so at that point we said this, and they said we're not going to talk or whatever. So that was a confusion, but that's what happened to the neighbors. The second is that for about 1.5 years ago, I spent a fair amount of time, I'm a Unitarian, and they were trying to rent that space. It met all the fire insurance. It was a preschool for many years, and I'm surprised that that wasn't mentioned as an option because Unitarians were ecstatic to have it used. So, and I guess my third point is, don't forget the noise of the people on Rice. Their backyards are right up there. And, you know, if it's in the backyard, it's going to be noisy for them too. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
I'm Catherine.
Okay, come on up.
So I don't have any notes because it's just
Can you
in the next.
state your name and address?
Catherine Vander Heiden. I have a weird throat. Catherine Vanderheiden, what else do you need?
Your address.
1330 Rice Road.
Thank you.
On what Hank was saying, I think is really true. There's a lot of noise that comes from the back end of our property when there's a lot of people there. I don't care how old they are, there just is. And the property line for the event, the thing that they're doing, does in fact abut to my backyard completely. It worries me because I don't really know whether or not, there's any kind of, I love my house, I love my property, I love the peace and quiet there. But if there's going to be a lot of noise, I may have to not live there anymore. And that bothers me. That's very sad for me. I lost my husband this year. I don't really need to lose anything else. And I think that those kinds of things don't get talked about sometimes, which is, I'm not against the actual idea of, the daycare. I'm not against that. But there's got to be some rules. I never got connected to Nicole or her husband. They did not connect with me. They said they were going to, but they didn't. And so I was left going, am I really going to be able to deal with this? And my ears are very sensitive. So there's that. So I was just feeling disturbed by the fact that the young people are being considered, but how about those of us? I'm not that young, but I'm also tuned in. My throat is a mess right now. But I really, it concerns me. It just concerns me. And when they said they were going to meet with people in the area, nobody called.
Thank you. Welcome. Next.
Hi, I'm Ruth Lapp. I live at 1340 President Street, and there was a lot of discussion earlier from Nicole and Brian that was new to me, and I couldn't hear. I really had a hard time hearing what they said. So there's been a lot of new information coming. So what I'm speaking about might be already covered. I'm here to ask the Commission to apply the standards of the codified ordinance 126203 and to see that the standards of the ordinance are met, that the application will be compatible with the character of the general vicinity. It will ensure that it is adequately served by the streets in paragraph D, and that it will ensure it does not involve excessive production of traffic. President Street, as everyone knows, is really narrow. It's a country street. It's 18 feet wide. It has no shoulders. Sometimes there's a ditch. I'm a dog walker. Early in the day, it can be dark. All the cars is unclear now as to how many cars are coming and going. However, I live right across from the driveway, and there will be many cars coming through 2, 3, 4 times a day. Their website for the 26-27 school year mentions Saturday classes and monthly Sunday gatherings. Is this to be continued in this new setting? The application doesn't address the parking and traffic created by these activities. And excessive traffic seems to be the standards of excessive traffic in our neighborhoods. This seems to be warranting a study of the traffic. Just 1/8 of a mile away is Glenview Road. Glenview Road is 32 feet wide. It has a sidewalk. It has curbs. It is ideal for the kind of traffic that is going to be continuing through our neighborhood. It is not about the quality of their school.
Thank you. Next.
I'm Marcia Sutherland, and I live at 1345 President Street, right next to 1333. Nicole and Brian obviously are excellent teachers. Kudos to them, and good for the kids. People don't know this, and this is important. If the appeal is turned down, the Gays will still have a daycare at their home, only it will be a smaller group of 6 instead of 12. They aren't getting cut out. I taught special need kids and kindergarten at Mills Lawn for 30 years. I know what recess sounds like. My patio is 30 feet away from where these children will be playing. Gone will be the quiet morning cup of coffee. Gone will be the peaceful afternoons of gardening. When I have to sell my house, how do I explain I'm right next door to an outdoor daycare with the 8 hours of yelling, screaming preschoolers? Who's going to buy a house next to that kind of noise all day, every day? I'm a single income retired teacher. I can't afford to have my house devalued like that. Commissioners, the daycare application cannot satisfy the rights of our neighborhood. Please deny this application.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, I'm Janine Clark at 1300 President Street. And respectfully, this meeting is not to determine if Open Air Village is a valuable business to the community, and I understand all of that. But the Planning Commission's duty is to only approve the application if it can clearly determine that each general standard of the ordinance 126203 is met for this location in the neighborhood. Standards of compatibility with the character of the general vicinity, absence of detrimental traffic and noise impacts. And my first concern is the extra traffic, and we've just seemed to decide that it's 24 cars total, not counting teachers or extra events. And in comparison, YS Ordinance 126205 defines conditional requirements for any other home-based business, and I quote, "Traffic generated by the combined home and home occupation shall be compatible with traffic normally expected in a residential district. It shall not entail more than 8 client visits per day or 40 per week," unquote. So the village considers that more than 40 extra visits as excessive traffic, and this proposed childcare business will entail at least 3 times the traffic. Excessive noise is another issue. Other home-based businesses are not permitted to have outdoor activities or any offensive noise noticeable at or beyond the property line. And by comparison, the children will be outside during the day making noise. So finally, there is no site-specific evidence to support the mandatory findings on compatibility, safety, traffic, and noise. The location on President Street for this home childcare business does not meet these standards. Please reject this application.
Thank you. Next.
Good afternoon. I'm Sue Mitchell. I live at 1360 Rice Road on a property next to the property that's directly behind their proposed business. Residential noise volume is a protected right in Ordinance 1262.03. It is the Planning Commission's responsibility to protect that right in order to protect the peace and quiet of this long-standing established neighborhood. Land and buildings in this district can only be granted conditional use upon finding that the general requirements of Chapter 1262 of the ordinance are not negatively impacted, noise being one of those requirements. An outdoor daycare will produce excessive noise well in excess of what we currently experience. You can't have 12 preschoolers outside in the backyard for most of the day and think that the noise level won't disturb the peace and quiet of this established neighborhood. That doesn't pass the sniff test. In Bill's letter, my husband's letter, early in April, he had an article in there that said, "Why are children shrieking all the time?" And a mental health expert and a licensed social worker said, because they're having fun, as they should. They're going to be screeching and hollering because that's what kids need to do. So the National Institute of Health reports that a single child can produce noise levels of up to 118 decibels, while normal conversation is around 60 decibels and a car horn averages 110. 50 dBs are what is generally considered the standard for residential neighborhoods. The EPA considers 55 dB sufficient to protect against annoyance, as levels above this can impact health. Operation of this business will produce noise that is 16 times as loud as normal conversation, noise that would be annoying, disturbing, and well beyond the established norm for this residential community.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Dorothy Bouquet. I live at 480 Polecat Road, and I'm coming here because my child was at OAV in, I forgot when. I'm sorry, it's just during the pandemic, okay? My child has special need, and because of that, I had to come at different points of the day to come and pick him up. I can tell you that I've seen OAV operating at any points of the day during their schedule, and it was never chaotic at that point. I never came at a point where it was so loud that it was disruptive. I'm also remembering that where they were back then, that was in the Sontag building, there were a couple of houses that were backing to the place where OAV was operating. One specific house that I can think of had retiree living in it. I mean, you should ask the gays if they ever had complaints from those neighbors then. They've been doing this for years. If their operations were going to produce those many decibels, I think it would have led to many complaints. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Ward. I'm from Fairborn, 2482 Roseanne Court. I have been teaching at Open Air for 5 years. Before that, I was at a public school. And I can tell you from being at the public school, yes, at recess, it can be loud. But that is when those children are expected to sit at a desk for majority of the 8 hours they are there. When you are able to be outside and able to use the energy you have as a child, it's not excessive noise. You're able to use your energy in other ways. So just wanted to address that misconception that the noise is going to be excessive all the time. It's very similar to having like a sprint versus a marathon. You can't keep it up the whole time. So if you're out there the whole time, it's going to be a lower noise level in general.
Thank you. Next.
Good evening. My name is Bill Mitchell. I live at 1360 Rice Road. I am catty corner behind this property that is under consideration for continuous use. I'm here to defend the rights of our quiet and peaceful neighborhood. And just as a fact, I was never approached about this issue, and my next door neighbor, Phil King, excuse me, I want to say Phil Rice, was never approached either. He had, you were in receipt of his letter. So there's been many passionate speeches about the worthiness of the daycare, and I agree with every one of them, what this couple is doing. However, this is about the rights contained in this ordinance 126203. As objectively determined in an earlier presentation, a group of healthy, and this is interesting, a group of healthy preschoolers will produce excessive noise up to 110 decibels is true. But the thing is, developmentally, that's important that kids first scream and yell and shriek. You have attached an article about that. So it's really, at that decibel level, it certainly goes beyond the right of a quiet neighborhood. And I think it's up to the commission and a duty in your mandate to protect that, plain and simple. Traffic noise, the way I get it, is the number of passes is 48. And that clearly exceeds our right to a residential road traffic volume that 2 cars in a typical residence would produce. Anyway, what the heck.
I just hope this hearing isn't meaningless and that you can protect our rights to the ordinance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next.
Good evening, and thank you for your service to the village.
Could you speak up, please?
Good evening, and thank you for your service to the village. Our resistance...
State your name and
Oh,
address.
sorry. Susan Abendroth. I live in 1375 Rice Road. It's a street and it's a house. It's a lot away from the proposed property. Our resistance isn't because we don't want businesses in the neighborhood. We already have them. It's not because we don't like having kids as neighbors. We already have them. Antioch Schoolers and Green Met and neighborhood kids fit in fine. And it's not because we're too old and set in our ways to accept change, as some have insinuated. No. It's because zoning rules were created to support shared community values in this special area. Removing the zoning protections will allow a proposed daycare to suddenly inflict daily racket and traffic congestion onto our currently quiet and peaceful neighborhood. We think it is unreasonable and unfair to do that. Commissioners, the daycare application cannot satisfy the rights of our neighborhood. The application should be denied, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Ethan Hamilton. I live at 148 Kenneth Hamilton Way. My daughter's 4 years old and has been going to Open Air Village for now 2 years. And I wanted to bring up the fact that I am the oldest of 7 kids. So if my family were to live in their house, it would be over the daycare requirement. And if each and one of us were to have one friend over, we would be over the limit for 12 kids being outside. I was 11 years old when my youngest brother was born, and my dad passed away when I was 14. There's plenty of times that we all had friends over at one time before I graduated high school. And if you're worried about noise, try being the oldest of 7 kids, 6 boys, 1 girl, that don't have a dad in their house to control them. The gays, they know how to keep the kids safe and under control. My daughter always likes to play open air at home. The first thing she always asks is how many kids are there and how can we be safe today? And I want to reiterate that, and the noise as the oldest of 7 it's louder in the house than it is outside. Sound travels. You have plenty of nature around the gays a lot that will block out the sound. That's what I would like you guys to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
I'm Paul Abendroth, 1375 Rice Road. I had a heart surgery and a breathing tube, so my voice is a little messed up. Rice Road and President Street were laid out by Antioch students many years ago. The street is narrow, no sidewalk, no curb, no anything. It's just a hunk of pavement deteriorating on the edges. If a car parks on the road, a yard service comes and parks, the street is closed. Okay? That's the street we're talking about. President is the same, maybe 3 inches wider. Okay. Do you have a process so that when the neighbors realize they're being bothered by this noise to make it stop? Is there a process we can say, it's too loud this afternoon, fix it? Is there any way they can do that? Can you do that? Can you impose a process to make it right, to make your decision right? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Meredith Florkey, and I live in Waynesville, Ohio, 9396 Ferry Road. I drove up tonight as one of Nicole and Brian's competitors, and I would like to support their venture. I've known the Gays since 2018, and I can speak as a fellow director to some of the licensing requirements. The licensing for Type A and Type B family child care centers, not daycares, family child care centers, are written in such a way to protect neighborhoods from businesses that, erect colorful climbers with big signage, things like this. It is written into code to protect neighborhoods. Just twice a year, the Gays will need to comply with surprise inspections from a person who drives a normal car, no delivery service, and there is someone looking out and making sure that all of these rules are followed, and if not, they're written up and they would be out of compliance. They have an excellent track record in these kinds of procedures. We are in a child care desert. I don't know if you know that. You can look on the Department of Child and Youth Services. There are only 3 licensed providers in this community as of now, and there are no family child care centers that are licensed in this area. There might be people watching children, but they are not licensed and going through the same scrutiny that the Gays perform at. And I think it says something that the nature-based community is here to support the Gays. We also, when you're talking about recess, when children just run out as a release, that is different than small nature-based programs where the outdoors is the curriculum, where they're led in small, large group activities with schedules that provide structure. So thank you very much.
Anyone else? If you haven't spoken and want to speak, please come forward. No one else? Okay, we're going to close the public hearing. And I have, I guess, a question perhaps for Amy. One person mentioned, can a conditional use permit be revoked?
Yes.
And how do you go about doing that?
So the provision in our code for revocation, actually, Susan, I have it pulled up right here. If there's a violation of the conditions imposed on the use, then a notice goes out from the village of the violation, and that the conditional use will be revoked within 15 days if not corrected.
Okay. So they would have 15 days to correct it?
If there is a violation of a condition.
Okay. Okay, and that would be the conditions like Aaron had listed, I think, maybe 3 conditions. So we would have to add some conditions if they were the ones like the noise, that type of thing, neighborhood complaints.
Right. Yes, which will be potentially, let's see how the commission moves forward with this, but could potentially be open to interpretation and difficult to enforce on both sides.
Okay. I also wanted to ask you if you could address, because this was something that I also wondered about, that the, in our code about the home-based businesses, about 8 per day or 40 per week.
Sure.
Is that applicable to the daycare?
Right. So in this zoning district, which I'm going to get wrong, RA, in the RA zoning district, a home-based daycare such as this is a conditional use. So is home occupations. So is, for example, bed and breakfasts. Whichever conditional use is applicable is the one that gets analyzed by staff and brought to commission. In this case, it's the home-based daycare, not a home occupation. So those other provisions that someone cited to is from a different section of the code and from a section that's not held to this application. This application is not held to those standards.
Okay, so it's not applicable. And I guess just as a follow-up, I ask about the conditions, because one of the major concerns of the neighbors is the noise. Is that something that, if it was an issue, I mean, is that something that we could do anything about?
I think it's real tricky.
Well, let's let Amy.
I suppose it would be tricky. And again, perhaps difficult to enforce, not impossible necessarily, but difficult to enforce on both sides. The commission could consider something along the lines of, if complaints rise to a certain threshold, that could potentially trigger revocation of the conditional use. That puts the applicant in the position of having their conditional use, of course, revoked, right? Pulled away from them if there are a significant number of complaints, if that's how the commission went in that direction.
Would it have to be louder than what the current noise ordinances are?
Not necessarily. You're not tied to your own noise ordinance here. It's a conditional use, so the commission has a lot of flexibility to condition it.
Does it go the other way? Are they going to limit the other neighbors' ability to make noise, like
The other neighbors
lawnmowers,
The other
stuff like
neighbors
that?
are not before you requesting a conditional use.
Okay. So they're allowed to make noise, up to the noise ordinance?
Yes.
Yeah. The problem with adding something unique to this is, once again, sound and noise is very tricky from a measurable standpoint. You not only get into the whole thing of having a sound level meter and having, calibration requirements, but your distance from the source of noise is dramatically influences your measurement.
Yes, and in
So-
fact, because of those very complications, Judy, correct me if I'm wrong here, a couple of years ago, we tweaked the village noise ordinance because of the same issues. Police was dealing with those same issues.
You could have a very, very loud noise at the source in the backyard. The measurement at the road, just from, once again, I got a little background on this. The measurement at the road is probably 40 decibels lower. The noise measurement at the person's house next door could be even lower than that. And you really, it's very hard to define something measurable that, in order to make something like this work, to be honest. And you don't want to have a requirement that's just based on the quantity of complaints. You have to have a qualitative basis for it to be sensible.
Amy, could we have one based on number of complaints? Because it sounds like noise level is not going to necessarily work. But, I'm trying to think of, if this is approved, what do the neighbors have if they're concerned about the sound?
I mean, you certainly could do that. Again, the commission has wide leeway to condition this use as you see fit. In that circumstance, it would leave the applicant on uncertain footing with their zoning, which they could speak to, certainly may or may not be problematic from a licensing perspective. But yes, I mean, you could condition it that way. And then it becomes, then it would be incumbent on staff, I think, to navigate that, should it ever come to fruition, that issue.
Susan, the thing about the noise, like, you remember, like, the neighbors around the Gulch. And so, like, you'd read in the paper week after week, 10:01 or whenever it was that the noise ordinance kicks in, and so somebody opens the door of the Gulch and it's too loud just momentarily, and somebody calls the police on them. And it just, I'm worried about, volume of complaints, like, it may not actually represent, noise levels, it just may represent a level of annoyance.
Yes. And what is annoyance for one person may not be for another person. But it is not up to us to determine what is an annoyance to the neighbors.
Well, this is almost like a reverse situation, because the Gulch was there, these people bought houses by the Gulch. You chose to live there. Deal with it.
But there's
if you're living in the downtown area, just deal with it.
Sure.
Now, the thing I was trying to say is, though, there are alternatives. They've already talked about fencing.
Yeah.
There are materials that are sound dampening.
About-
They were talking about fencing, then they're going to talk to their person about some fencing.
Yes.
There is sound damping materials that you can have in fencing.
Well,
Plus, and then you can add the shrubbery in front of it too.
Yeah.
So there are things that can be done. And instead of just coming up with a noise, so we want sound damping fencing and I guess a bat phone to call, hey.
Other
we got a problem.
questions for Amy that she could answer, or Aaron? Or do we have other questions for Nicole or Brian?
No, but I want to talk more about the whole noise thing.
Let's see if there's other questions first.
Yeah.
Other questions? Gavin, you're looking like you have one. No?
I think I mean, there are things that I'm considering, but I don't think they're questions for anybody else.
Okay, go ahead then, Gary.
Yeah. I keep coming back to the whole thing about noise per se. Noise is a subjective and qualitative quantity. Sound is measurable and objective. The device it's a sound level meter. There's no such thing as a noise level meter. So once again, it has, you want to put in a requirement, it needs to be quantifiable and measurable. Qualitative, you then have to define what are you defining as noise, you know? I mean, some years ago, even in council, I think there was an issue with roosters crowing, you know, and that went round and round in a circle. But even then, you define, well, what's noise, you know? Because noise doesn't have a clear definition. And if we want to get into trying to define noise as a basis for a complaint, you're going to go round and round in a circle on that, I think, from my experience.
So I have a question. So how long, I mean, this thing about having a daycare as a conditional use isn't something that was recently added to the zoning. It's been in there. I mean, do anybody have any, I mean, it's not something that was, do we have any idea how long it's been in there?
Is this something that we did change fairly recently where no, it's been there for quite a while? Judy's saying it's been there for quite a while.
Okay, so it goes back to what you're saying. So nobody expects these things to happen.
Right.
You know, every place I've lived in town, things have happened to my neighborhood. You know, but it's, you know, so nobody thinks, well, this is, you know, but it probably was in the zoning when every one of the neighbors bought their houses. So, you know, it's one of the potential things. It's like probably a bunch of other potential things in the zoning that could happen, you know, that were, you know, and it's, nobody likes it, but nobody thinks, oh, well, this is going to happen. There's going to be Taco Bell is going to come in next door. Nobody thinks it's going to happen, but, you know, it happens to somebody.
We used to have Taco Bell.
The program that my kids went to in the neighborhood down by Dollar General was exactly like this. Maybe not quite the same focus, although there was lots of outdoor play equipment. This was 30 or 35 years ago, you know, and and there's been others since. So the concept is not new.
No.
You know, along that lines.
And I have to say, for me, it's really a challenge for me that I have empathy for both sides. When my first house that I bought in Yellow Springs was right behind the Children's Center. So I knew it was there when I bought the house. I was working full-time, so I rarely was home, but the times when I was home, I have to say, children's voices don't bother me. My husband worked on a different schedule, so he was home a lot. He was never bothered by it. We lived there probably 10 to 12 years, and in terms of value of houses, we sold that house for 3 times what we paid for it. So being by the daycare center didn't make any difference, but that is me. You know, I didn't have a problem with that. I really understand how the neighbors feel because you've bought your property and you want a quiet, peaceful neighborhood. You feel like you have one. You're out in the morning listening to the birds, having your cup of coffee. My husband's a birder. He's out listening to birds, although ours isn't necessarily a peaceful neighborhood. But I understand that. So this is a challenge. The day care sounds so wonderful. My son went to Valeska Appleberry's Montessori school. Only the old folks here are going to remember it. But it was in the Vale. She had about 10 or 15 acres, and it was a nature school where the kids were going in and out. And she had the advantage that we didn't have car seats. So you could pack 6 kids in one car, and she required us to do that. And I was, we carpooled with other families. It's different now. You have car seats for each child, and you can't carpool anymore like that. It's probably not safe, but. So this is a very difficult decision, I think, for all of us.
I agree with exactly what you're saying, that, this is, people start to expect, the way their neighborhoods are, and everybody tends to want it to stay that way.
Yeah, people don't like change.
No, we don't.
That's what it comes down to.
I guess. More than that, guys.
What about the traffic?
So people don't like change.
So if I,
Go ahead, Gavin.
Taking it down to the last common denominator.
If you want to say something, and I guess I have not closed the public hearing, have I? You did. I did, okay.
You did.
I closed it.
Yeah.
Do you want to come up to the microphone?
Well, no, we close the public hearing.
I do, actually.
Okay, go ahead.
I think this is all a charade. You can say anything you want about noise or no noise. I have incredibly sensitive ears. I end up having to put things in my ears when I'm outside. Otherwise, I can't hear the next day. And I want that to be acknowledged. I do it, but I have really sensitive ears. I did not grow up in a family of screamers. I just didn't. And I didn't grow up in schools where people were allowed to scream at the top of their lungs. And so I developed, like my father did, good hearing. I'm losing it because I cannot deal with some of the depth of yelling that happens, and it's supposed to be okay. It's not okay. It's not okay with me. It's never been okay with me. So if you guys like to have people yell at you and yell in your ears, have at it. I don't. And I want to be heard because it feels really disrespectful not to be. It's not just about noise. It's not just about, wanting to, I don't even know what I want to say, but the bottom line is noise is dangerous for me. I don't want to lose my hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan, if I might be helpful to take us back to the conditional use standards.
Okay.
Which are spelled out in 126203 of the code. Those are the standards, A through G. It is a list that Planning Commission needs to find that each of the following standards are satisfied by the application.
So do you think we should go through each of those?
It might be useful to the commission, might help guide the conversation if you look to the standards for the conditional use.
Okay, let me pull them up.
You talking about 126203?
Pages 4 and 5 of the staff report. That way.
So the first one is, and are you suggesting, Amy, that we go through A through G?
The standards are A through G, and I'm not necessarily suggesting that you take a vote on any of these at this point or any of that, but just to help guide discussion.
Okay.
This is where, this is, so 126203, general standards, any request for a conditional use shall only be approved upon the finding that each of the following standards are satisfied. And so this A through G is going to be where the crux of the conversation needs to focus.
Okay, so A is the proposed use will be consistent with the intent and purposes of this zoning code and the vision, goals, and recommendations of the comprehensive plan and vision, Yellow Springs, Miami Township. And the finding was that it may be found to be consistent with the intent, purposes of the zoning. Are people pretty much in agreement with that, or no?
It's an existing conditional use, so it was anticipated that you could have a daycare in a residential neighborhood.
And what I would state as a broader, vision of the community is what's been mentioned in many different forums, is the need to attract younger families to this community. And
well, we need to.
This fits into that in terms of the vision of the demographic goals of this community. I mean, isn't that somewhere in there with what village council?
That would be in the vision.
prioritizing?
That would be in the vision.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, then the proposed use will comply with all applicable requirements of this code, except as specifically altered in the approved conditional use.
So for example, that would be relevant to your parking considerations. They likely are required to have 6 spots perhaps. This is a conversation Aaron and I had. 4 spots for sure, based on the size of the structure, but then an additional spot for each member of staff.
And it sounded like that they have those spaces, and that cars will not be there parking all day, will be pulling in, dropping off.
Well, they're not even going to be in the road, well, the driveway.
They'll be pulling into the driveway.
And if I can clarify that calculation, it's 1 spot per 350 square feet of usable floor area of, that's going to be in the building. So it's not the full structure itself. That came out to the 4 parking spaces.
Okay. So the proposed use will be compatible with the character of the general vicinity.
There's a school around the corner with 50 or 60 kids.
It's zoned educational.
Regardless, it's around the corner. It's right there in the neighborhood. It's on the edge of the neighborhood.
Hold on a second.
100 yards away.
I want to clarify this again. Y'all had your turn to talk. This is our turn to talk. We can't be battering back and forth. It's going to
Yeah.
go on forever. No, but that's just, I thought Susan explained that before that y'all had yours.
Yeah.
Please let us say it.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, and the wording is compatible with the character of the general vicinity. I'd say that school is in the general vicinity. An
I
annex
think
school.
honestly, even if that wasn't in the general vicinity, I mean, it's going to look like a house. It's, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
it's not going to, you know, it's.
Doesn't look
you know,
like anything else.
Yeah.
But a house.
Right. I think that, you know, it's staying the way it is, you know, it's not going to have a big sign or flashing neon lights or anything like that.
Right.
You know, it's, I think it fits with the general vicinity. You know, it's not going to be doing anything after business hours, so.
It won't look any different.
Yeah.
Okay. The area and proposed use will be adequately served by essential public facilities and services as applicable, such as highways, streets, police and fire protection, drainage structures, refuse disposal, water and sewers and schools. The applicant or landowner will be required to install public utilities, streets, or other public infrastructure as required by the village, state, or other agencies applicable to specification. Dedication of said public infrastructure may be required. And for this one, the essential services are
Yeah.
already provided.
Right, there's nothing new being built.
The proposed use will not, and this is E, the proposed use will not involve uses, activities, process, materials, equipment, and conditions of operations, including but not limited to hours of operation that will be detrimental to any person's property or the general welfare by reason of excessive production of traffic, noise, smoke, fumes, glare, odor, or other characteristic not comparable to the uses permitted in the zoning district.
So the two things that people have pointed out are noise and traffic. And so, you know, it is probably going to create more noise and probably going to create more traffic, but the question isn't really whether, you know, everything people does creates, you know, noise and traffic. And I don't think that these things are excessive. I'm just, you know, it's excessive production of traffic noise. I mean, so the amount of time that there's a car on President Street might be 0.1% during the day, and so now maybe it goes up to 0.2%. I mean, it isn't like that when we get into traffic studies, we're talking about, well, do we need to widen the road? You know, do we need to add a turn lane or a traffic light? I mean, so there will be more cars, but that isn't really the question. You're allowed to have more cars. It's whether this is excessive, whether it's going to tax the infrastructure, and if there's 24 more trips down President Street during the day,
Over
you
8
know,
hours.
yeah, I mean, it just, I don't think that would be excessive.
Yeah, what you're talking about is like some of the other developments, if it indicates, oh, it's going to go from 500 cars per whatever to 2,000, that's an issue.
And are people in agreement, Gavin?
Yeah, I feel like this is one of the questions I've been really grappling with is where is the line on excessive? Because I think probably everybody who lives in Yellow Springs is here on some level because we like quiet. And so it's just, where do you draw the line? This is legitimately, I think, really tricky. We've heard about it before with other establishments in town. Yeah, it's a hard line to draw. Are a few more cars, is it 5 more, 10 more, 20 more, 30 more? We don't have limitations on many other forms of things that are much louder.
Yeah. Look at their sheet, their proposed.
I saw the stuff, Gary. Can I just
8
finish
to
talking?
8:20, 4 cars.
let's let Gavin
4 cars,
finish.
20 minutes.
Yeah. So I think it's a question that we're dealing with, and it's really awesome to see so many people here. There's like a handful of y'all that have been to council meetings before, but most of y'all we don't ever hear from or see, and just to know that this is I think legitimately really related to what we're trying to figure out across the village on a range of issues is how do we build a community where we can both take advantage of peace and quiet and a lot of the things that have come up tonight, and also have this be a place that can be accessible to different kinds of people, and that we can change some of the demographic trends that Gary talked about earlier that have been happening over time. So it was great to read. Honestly, it's pretty rare that we read hardly anybody that's sharing thoughtful things that don't feel like they're form letters, and this was almost everyone was. So thank you. Would love to see some of y'all come and engage on many of the other community issues that these things keep coming up on. I would say I'm just putting all my comments in one place. So I'm generally in the place of this is complex. I share your feeling of empathy with sort of both sides. I like the idea of I'm hearing that they're open to many of the requests that were in some of the letters around things like caps on numbers, clear drop-off, parking on property, et cetera. And I think, could we do let's check back in a year so that there's not a limitation of, can parents and the, operators know that there's going to be a clear amount of time, but that there's some place to check back in. So that's one idea I'd throw out there. But I generally lean toward let's give it a shot.
Amy, could we do that as a condition to check back?
You certainly could. I'm not sure that you've given anybody, I'm not sure that isn't a disservice to both positions.
I hear that. I wish it was cleaner. I mean, I don't know. I've driven by a couple times and, walked around a couple times just trying to get a feel for it over the last week or so. And, you can still drive a car by. Like earlier today, there was a mowing service out front, and cars can drive by. Regular operations can take place, but will there be noises that if you are used to total quiet that will be different from the way your life was before? Yeah, that's a thing, and it's just a question of where is the line of, when do we buy noise-canceling headphones for an hour or two, or when do we have it be a notable change to our lifestyle, and that's a thing that should impact our life. It's a tricky line.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead. Scott, were you going to say something?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I kind of agree with Gavin. I just think I have a better way to put this. It's we're trying to find the balance between supporting our youth and still respecting the people that came before. And one of the things I do like the suggestion of looking back at this, if it were to be approved. But I also think, another thing I would like to see, because being a former construction, is there are, because they were talking about a fence. Well, they do make, not soundproofing fences,
Yeah.
but, they do have that kind of material. You can actually just add it on. Actually, you can almost make a little paint thing with the kids, and that'd be a project. Let's paint the fence. And, but, I'd like to look at some of these other options, because I, for one, am a firm believer that, we've got to have kids, but I'm not one to, make people that are against us feel like we don't give a rat's ass about them either. Because I do, because it's I was always taught to respect my elders. That's my southern coming out of me. I'll be careful now. I was raised by my grandmother, so that's the way I am.
Okay,
But,
we've got,
I think we got some room to work with. I just want to know where we're kind of going with this, though.
Real quick, if I may add, Chief Burge, our chief of police, she wasn't able to be here today, but I did talk with her and I had a review over this, and she did address that she didn't have any significant traffic-related concerns for it. She had said, based on what she believed, that the traffic volume appeared consistent with typical residential activities. Although we haven't had like a full traffic study done for this necessarily, I just wanted to share her thoughts as she wasn't able to be here today.
We have two more then conditions that I'll go ahead with. The proposed use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding property for uses permitted in the district. And I don't think that it will.
Right.
And then the last one, the proposed use will not block sight lines from the right-of-way to existing signs or windows on the front of the building, and no, it will not. So I guess we're getting to the point where we're probably needing to make a decision. Is there anybody that wants to come forward with the motion? And if so, do they want to have some conditions on it?
I would like to have some conditions. Because when they were talking earlier, the guys were talking earlier, they mentioned about they're going to talk to this person about fencing, and they should if you're going to put fencing up, that would help, because anything to reduce the noise is a positive, even after if you get the fencing up and get some noise reduction on there, put more plants in front of it, would be a positive.
So you're wanting sound-reducing fencing?
Yes.
Go ahead.
My concern about sound-reducing fencing is that's sort of vague, because it might actually be just you put in trees. And there might already, I believe they said they already have requirements to put in some sort of fencing.
Yeah, I was going to let their fencing person talk to them about that, Gary. I'm not going to tell them where to go shopping, but you can put stuff on fencing that will reduce sounding. It's just like when I was in a band, we couldn't get acoustical foam, but we took egg cartons and hung them on our walls, and it made a big difference of what sound was getting out. I mean,
I'm not sure if the word you want to use is fencing. It's more of, because you put trees up, that's not fencing, but it's buried. I mean,
with the kids, they already said they're going to have.
Well, I think, yes,
Look
they
into
did
that,
say
so.
you were going to have a barrier or fencing, is that
So no
right?
kids can get, trees is not going to be a good barrier, yeah. I'm pretty sure that's going to have to be fencing, because kids get through trees and bushes.
So are we kind of doing like a what possible conditions round right now?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So like in one of the letters, there was strict cap on numbers. Well, the cap on numbers is clear, right? It's 12.
Yeah.
Right? So just, we don't need to put that in because they have that process, right?
Yes.
I'm just communicating the specific things people brought up that seem like they make sense to me. Clearly drop off and pick up. So I think they've articulated a pretty good plan. And do we have to, that's in the.
Aaron has that as one of our conditions.
Okay.
Provide a schedule and a protocol for drop-off and pickup, and ensure all families are required to comply with the schedule and protocol.
Okay. And then parking on the property, I haven't heard any problem with that everybody's agreeing that the desire is to keep all of the parking within the driveway, right?
Yes.
Correct.
And then.
And that's part of the protocol, is that there's no on-street parking?
Yes.
The way I heard it is that they're trying to work with that they're going to work to have timing. They had the thing in there about different times they'll try to ask people, so they're trying to accommodate.
So outside of pickup and drop-off times, I wasn't sure how to determine, I wanted your guys' thoughts on that, how to determine the U-shaped driveway, if that's going to be considered parking spaces as well. I wasn't sure how to.
I would think that it would be, yes.
Yeah.
But do we need to state that under the conditions, that they establish the U-shaped driveway to meet the on-street parking requirement, or no? Because
I think we're just
there's a parking requirement that they have to meet, right?
Aren't we just saying there will not be off-street parking?
You're right.
And
That's what we're wanting to say, no on-street parking.
yeah.
I think we're conflating two things. There is a parking requirement in the code, and Planning Commission has the authority to modify or reduce the number of parking spaces they're required to provide on site. But I'm also hearing the commission talk about a condition that you're prohibiting on-street parking. So, two different things. If the commission wants to modify the number of required parking spaces, that's fine, down from what we believe it to be, or simply acknowledging that they have sufficient amount of parking on site because of the shape of the driveway. In terms of prohibiting on-street parking, There's nothing in our code that prohibits on-street parking anywhere in the village, to my knowledge.
Right.
Should you want to condition the conditional use with something like that, then I would encourage the commission to think about doing that between the hours of 8 to 5, Monday through Friday.
I would be for that one because like I said, I used to live there when I was a kid. I've been down President, I've been down Rice. That was my stomping grounds. Those streets are now, so yeah, I would definitely want no on-street parking.
Between the hours of
Between
8
those
and
hours
5?
when it's in operation.
Well, except what if somebody from another house happens to park in front of it and goes to another house and
Well, that's
someone's
their
concerned
ticket.
and calls the police about them and they have no idea whose car that is?
Well,
Well, then that's the police to go out there
okay.
and write a ticket on that car.
All right, so
and
hold
they're
on.
not responsible
Hold
for
on.
it.
The police won't have any mechanism for enforcement of any of this at the onset. For code enforcement issues or revocation of a conditional use, there's a very specific, very specified process set forth in the code. If we were to move forward with revoking a conditional use in the village, there are steps we take first. We wait 15 days. There's additional steps that take. Eventually, somewhere down that process, you get to a place of potential criminal enforcement. You don't go from approval of conditional use with conditions to calling the police to enforce it. Those two do not connect. Beyond that, I suppose the point I'm making about on-street parking is that they do live in the home or will be living in the home and, could have family and friends over at any given time and on a weekend or after business hours. And
Right,
so
but after
that's
business
where-
hours is different.
Right.
Because we're just clarifying just during business hours. And Gary, another way, if someone does it, I mean, that's just a pain in the butt. You just have to tell them when they come back to the car, like, hey, you're not supposed to park in there. I mean, I don't like
There
making
would be
rules just for the
nothing-
exception of one person.
There would be nothing prohibiting me from
Right.
rolling up in front of that home between 8 to 5 Monday and Friday and parking my car and walking away from it.
Right.
That you're discussing conditioning the conditional use with a requirement that their employees or clients do not park on the street.
Right. And if it's not one of theirs, that's not an issue for them.
Okay, so you make it specific for their customers and employees.
Yes, and I.
During the time of operation.
And we need to think, in all of this, as with any conditional use with conditions, we need to consider the fact that there are limitations on what the village can do in terms of daily or regular enforcement of conditions on a conditional use, right? Again, there is no calling the police for violations of a conditional use. Those two things don't connect.
Right.
So the commission should.
So who they call is Aaron?
Yes.
Aaron, get the bad phone.
Yes, and.
Or Johnny.
And,
No, John's got enough now.
And in all seriousness, there are limitations on what a staff this size can handle in terms of code enforcement issues on any given day. And so I would just encourage the commission to keep that in mind in terms of any restrictions that any conditions that you place on the use.
I know some people. It'll be all right.
I mean, functionally, what would happen is that if this happened repeatedly, then our staff should become aware of that because the neighbors clearly are passionate about it and are going to let us know. At which point, that's when the thing kicks in about you'd communicate the conditions issue, right? So I think there is a mechanism, and
Yes, this may be something you want to discuss with the applicant, because you don't want to find yourself, the village does not want to find itself in an never-ending loop, because there is 15 days to correct violations of a conditional use. So you don't want to find yourself in a position of sending notice of a violation is cured, sending notice of violation is cured. So that's where.
There's no parking signs there.
Yeah, that's where,
You buy it all the
again, the commission just needs to be thoughtful about what conditions you apply.
Okay, so then to go back, were there any other conditions? So at this point,
I have a suggestion for one
okay,
of them.
just a minute.
Yeah.
So at this point, we have potentially 6, and we can cross any off. We have the one about the schedule protocol for drop-off. We have obtain certificate of occupancy. Prior to installation of any sign, obtain a sign permit approval. Sound reducing fencing or barrier. No on-street parking between 8 to 5 for employees or clients. And there is, I guess we consider the driveway the parking, significant parking.
And that doesn't need to be a condition on
Okay, that
these.
doesn't need to be a condition. Okay.
Can I just clarify your number 4? So you've got sound reducing fence barrier.
Fencing or barrier.
Fencing or barrier, I would just
I'd like to
let
modify.
which sides?
I'd like to-
Because that's a vague.
But
I have a suggestion for that. Since they're obligated anyway to put up some sort of barrier, that you simply put in that they include, I'm not sure the term is sound abatement features as practical, you know? Because if it turns out to do a treatment's going to cost $10,000, that might not be so.
Well, like I said, I was referencing to the people they're going to talk to, what they can actually have for
Well,
fencing.
but once
They're going
again,
to talk to them
Bill,
themselves.
we simply say that they're already obligated to put up a barrier, but that the condition is that they include sound abatement features.
Fencing or
Sound abatement,
barriers.
sound
As
reducing.
practical.
As
Or just-
practical.
As
Yeah.
practical.
I think
And
it's
it's not
practical.
going to be
sounds reasonable.
$10,000, but
Yeah.
So if you attach a condition such as that, practical to whom?
Okay, so maybe leave that part off.
Yes, I mean, it just puts staff in a position of trying to, analyze and interpret and apply the commission's intentions, but.
But it's okay
Okay,
to
what
just
I'm
put
trying
to
to clarify
include
here,
sound.
what I mean by sound abatement, what he's talking about, is that when they talk to their fencing person will just put regular fencing there, that's solid, and they might even say, trees and bushes will work for that.
Yeah,
I mean, that's why I'm deferring that to the third person they're going to be talking
actually
to.
solid works for that.
Is there any other condition that anybody,
I still struggle with the parking thing in terms of, I just don't think it's practical.
are other people feeling, well,
What do you mean
I guess I
practical?
don't see how it's not practical.
I don't think that, the enforcement doesn't, it doesn't have any teeth. I mean.
Well, she just said we can't put teeth in something like that. And
I think
it is,
to me-
the only teeth is, the only teeth you could probably do for them is like they just put out no parking signs in front of their property, like we do for street fair when we get invaded. I mean, to stop people, but if someone wants to park there, Gary, you can't stop them. They'll stop who they need to, as long as it's not their clients or their employees,
Gavin,
they're good. They're still in good.
Yeah. It's a conditional use. We look at these one by one. We have ample evidence that would tell us that they're going to thoughtfully try. And then we're just basically saying, hey, if that becomes an issue, then, people can bring it up. But I think they've said they don't want people they don't expect to have people parking on the street. There's lots of people who have said that they're, anyway, I don't think we need to.
Okay, so they don't think it's not a particular problem, but it does address a particular issue.
Yeah, I think the way I look at it is, I was looking at, there was many of the requests for conditional use are things that they are saying they are going to do.
Yeah.
And so we shouldn't fight over things that they're going to do. They've already said they want to do them. It's really just going to come down to this thing of like whether or not the noise or the traffic are excessive. And I just don't think there's any way we're ever going to be able to delineate that unless we go get 12 kids and have them run around out there at every time of the day, every time of the year, and measure it. There's just we're never going to know.
So you are okay with leaving that on there?
Yeah, because I think it's saying to the neighbors, hey, we're hearing you, we're trying to keep, and I think they already said that too.
Yes.
So why,
Okay.
there's an agreement on it.
So real quick, if I may interject. Exhibit F on what they provided to us, it does specifically state that street parking is not allowed in front of the home. So under the first condition of approval and technicality, as long as they're basically ensuring that all families are under their protocol, that would cover that. I just
Cool,
wanted to
sounds
clarify
good.
that.
So do we need to say anything else, or you think that's covered under that?
So the conditional use would be that the protocol are distributed and,
Yeah,
adhere
well,
to
and
it.
it says, are required to comply with the schedule and protocol.
So it's already in their protocol.
Okay, so we can take that off since it's already included in it. Okay, so we only are adding to the 3, we're adding the 4th one about the sound reducing fencing or barrier. Does somebody want to make this motion with these conditions?
I'll make a motion to approve it with the conditions, provide a schedule for the protocol, obtain a certificate of occupancy, the sign thing, and then also the fourth one that we've added, which is sound reducing fencing or barrier.
So if we could unpack that last one again for a second.
Yeah.
I think I've been sort of assuming, but we've not explicitly said it. Are we talking about around the backyard?
Well, that's where the kids are going to be, so yes.
So maybe we want to say include where the children will be playing?
No, where fencing is required.
Okay, where required.
Well,
where fencing is required.
Well, we're
Where
saying
barrier is
fencing
already
or
required.
barrier.
That way
where
they're not
required.
running amok.
Yeah.
That was the word we were for earlier.
And we're assuming that's in the backyard.
Well,
Because
so
I think I
okay.
read something where they're not going to be in the front area.
I thought they said
So
something like
maybe
that.
you would say that required fencing and barrier will include noise suppression or noise, whatever terms you had, sound reduction features.
So put too many words in this.
Judy, do you have that fourth one? Okay.
and I don't either.
And what I had is sound reducing fencing or barrier where required.
Yes, I think it would be perfectly appropriate to hear from the applicant.
Yeah. Help us.
I think this may be creating a,
With the number.
Yeah. So I guess with the sound abatement or soundproofing, my question would be, how are we establishing a baseline for the noise? And then how much are we abating from that noise? Is there going to be a requirement? I mean, also, a fence in itself is a sound abatement device.
Depends on the fencing.
Sure. Right.
Because I have a wrought iron fence with all these
But then
openings.
again, like,
It doesn't abate
the sound abatement of the plants is better now than it was 4 months ago. So
And this is
that'll
where-
change.
Yes, and this is where it would behoove everyone if we could get a little bit more specific. If what the commission is getting at is a 6-foot wooden privacy fence with fast-growing evergreens planted along the perimeter or something along those lines, those are tangible, specific details that would then allow both the applicant to understand what's been approved and allow staff to understand what's been approved. I hear you, Scott, that you don't necessarily want to get that specific because you want to give them the opportunity to speak to somebody who works in this field, but the more vagueness you leave in these conditions, the more problematic it could be.
Okay, so I'll just say for me, the other dynamic is cost, right? So it's like if it was free to put up a fence, then this would be easy. You brought up that you may have interest in, you might do a fence anyway, but I'm nervous about saying fence the whole thing 6 feet, plant something around it, because what I'm hearing is that they're also talking about this being somewhat temporary, that it's not clear. So I assume that there is a line where it's like, okay, up to a certain amount, and maybe the homeowner is interested in helping with the investment, whatever. But I'm somewhat hesitant to have a clear line on this. So I understand what. Oh, it's gone. I understand what Scott's saying, but I would probably not put in the condition around the fencing because it feels like it would be, I don't know, like onerous, is that the word? Toward the, toward the endeavor. It's also, just as a note, there were several people who are neighbors who communicated that they were okay with things. And there's also discussion about deer being able to move, and so then it becomes like, how are you? So the fencing to me is like...
Deer jump over fence.
Depending on how high they are.
well, also,
Anyway.
We've heard people talk about how the kids aren't really that noisy. This hasn't been a complaint. So maybe I'm okay with just leaving the 3 conditions that are there.
Okay.
And just going forward with the 3 that are already, and not worrying about the fencing. You're going to have to put up some fencing.
Yes, we have to do something. And that would be a conjunction between our licensing requirement, what's allowable in the village, and what the homeowner will allow us to put up. So,
And also people have said that you're, adaptable and responsive to problems, and so hopefully that means that if there are angles or directions that are of particular concern, that you'll address those.
yeah, we're very I mean, flexible in all of the sorts of.
Okay, thank you.
Scott step
Okay, we were in the process of who was making the
So
motion.
actually, let me make the motion again, to approve this with just the 3 original conditions: the schedule for the pickup, certificate of occupancy, and the sign.
So we're not doing anything with the fencing?
No fencing.
So
They're
it
gonna.
wasn't because you were gone.
Starting to see a conspiracy here, though.
But while you were gone, it was discussed that
Amy discussed.
I brought the question of cost for a fence, the fact that they've talked about how long they want to be, that this is likely a temporary thing, about how long the child care center will be in the space. So the question or concern being that if you draw a line, if you
Okay,
have a clear
I've got a
fence-
fourth one I think that will work.
And Amy was saying that we needed to be very specific.
This will be very specific.
Okay.
When they talk to their person, and if they are required to have a fence, they need to report that back to us. And that way we know.
No.
No?
What they, Brian came up while you're gone and said that it's a barrier, but this gets into then, is it a wrought iron fence that has effectively no sound
You mean like Susan Stiles?
limitation?
Yes, like mine.
Susan actually brought up her own fence.
I heard that part.
Okay, you heard, okay. I was just trying to
Okay. I guess what I'm trying to get at is like, whether it be plants, something on it, and I heard it mentioned the part that introducing noise.
No comments.
I don't want to leave it open because I just feel like I said, this could be, like you said, we're also having to come back and look at later on, aren't we? Like, were we putting a timeline on that?
We had
Or
talked
we
about
pose
that, but then it seemed like Amy wasn't sure if that was really workable. I'm not sure why.
On
I
what
think
now?
what she's saying, I brought up the idea of a 1 year, and Amy's basically saying, hey, if you do that, it creates a level of uncertainty for all parties. I understand it. I'm trying to find a balance point. It was just an idea. I didn't hear any other agreement with it. That's fine. I was just.
Can we do like we did with, or like the planning condition, or the planning commission previously did with the business over at Millworks, which was if anything changed, okay, we put 3 conditions on there, but if anything changes, they need to come back.
What do you mean if anything changes?
Let's see if they have to, I don't know, if something changes, like if they have to put a fence up, let us know. Or if it's going to affect our hours of operation.
They already have to put something up.
We don't know what it is, and everyone seems to be against me wanting to get it in what we're saying and leave it to them, and you want me to go along with that, like, which I will go along with, but.
We could add a condition, just like the sign one, where prior to installation of a fence, they have to obtain a fence permit, because they do have to do that through me.
Yeah, I mean, it's just tough enough. I'm not talking about having to come back and do this the whole thing again. I'm just curious. I want to know what their people say. I just want to leave this out there, and then all of a sudden, I run to some of these people, and they're like going, "It's nothing." And trust me, I love kids. Don't get me wrong. And yes, they do scream, but I trust you. I've also seen, parenting's changed a lot since when I was younger. I'm gonna tell you that right now, and I've seen remarkable alternative ways that my parents didn't use on me. I'm gonna tell you that right now. We get a little smack, but I've seen these, and these kids are well behaved.
So the issue is that Scott is concerned about is that he would like to know what the fencing is. Is there something that we can put in? You said a fence permit, but he's wanting, basically, any changes that would occur, they would need to let us know, probably through Aaron. Let Aaron know, you'd report back to us. Would that work for you?
That's fine with me.
But that's a non.
It's not enough. I know it's not.
Condition?
I don't want
Yeah,
to
it's
have
a
teeth. I don't
non-thing.
want it to punch, but it's just.
I mean,
These people want some assurances that the noise is being addressed, and that's what I'm just trying to have it in there,
Sure.
that we care enough about to have, that we're actually listening to them.
let me point something out. That's all based on an assumption that there's going to be problematic noise. We don't know if that's the case.
Well,
Just
that's
thought I'd throw
fine.
that out.
I always plan for the worst and expect the best.
Okay, we have, are you okay, Scott, with us having well, I guess it's whether or not, we have 3 conditions.
Yeah, that's fine.
As is.
And do we have a second for this motion?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded.
And are we just voting on the conditions?
No, we're voting on the
We're voting on the whole
motion.
bag.
Okay, and the motion with the
Can you-
conditions.
Let's
Can you
restate it.
restate? Thank
So
you.
we're talking about a motion to approve
Yes.
with the 3 conditions of approval that are set forth in the staff report, which
Yes.
are the schedule, the protocol for drop-off and pickup.
Yes.
Which includes within it a commitment for no street parking.
Yes.
To obtain a certificate of occupancy, and that prior to installation of any sign, they obtain a sign permit approval.
Yes.
Okay, that's the motion on the table, and there are 3 conditions, but I have one other thing to add. I apologize for this. Gavin, going back to your point, I suppose I wasn't hearing what you were potentially suggesting, which was a condition that the conditional use only lasts for a year. Is that what you were suggesting?
Yeah, or that there would be a check-in or something. I mean,
I heard the check-in, that mechanism doesn't resonate with me.
I don't think he was saying that it would be conditional for 1 year. I think he was just saying there would be a check-in at 1 year.
Like how many complaints, has there been complaints or stuff like that?
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that point so that I didn't leave anybody confused as to what I'm saying. The check-in mechanism is a non-thing, right? I don't know how we would navigate it. Approving conditional uses with a sunset date is not unheard of. I don't know that I've ever seen it happen out here in the village, but it is a thing, and it's certainly something that you would have the ability to do.
I'm sorry.
I know, yeah.
Are you wanting to do this, Gavin?
Can you say the core again?
Yes, so what I had heard you say earlier is you wanted some type of check-in mechanism. That I don't know that I see that, because it would be very difficult to figure out exactly what that means and how to navigate it. But making a condition that this conditional use will last for a year and we'll do all of this again in a year, that is a thing. And it does occur on conditional uses, typically not out here. I don't know that I've ever seen this commission set a conditional use for a specified time frame, but it is within your power to do that.
Yeah.
I guess I was looking for something that felt more in between. The idea that it would stop entirely, it's like, I think I tend to agree with Gary that it's like, I don't know that there's going to be a problem. And so I'm hesitant to say we should have a clear stopping point. On the flip side, it feels like there should be some way, if this actually becomes a problem, to talk about it in some way.
What I'm wondering, the process, let's say we approve it all with the conditions as is, and they go through, they set up the sign, they have some sort of barrier stuff. Ultimately, does the village inspect that, or do they go back to Aaron, or how does somebody deals with checking that they've complied with this stuff? What is that mechanism?
There is no staff mechanism where we check they've complied with certain conditions
okay.
such as this. I mean, if it comes to staff's attention that people are parking on the street during the business day.
Then it shows up.
Yes, if
Yeah.
the signs have gone up and there's been no sign permit issued, any of those, then yes, then it becomes a mechanism of enforcement. But
Meg Leatherman used to say, like, we're complaint driven.
we are just about to say it. Scott, you took the words right out of my mouth. There will be no proactive inspection.
Okay,
Well, that
we
might be the
have a
mechanism.
motion on the table.
Yeah.
It's been moved and seconded.
Okay.
Are we finished discussing?
I'm good.
I'm done.
Because it sounds like we're discussing the same thing. So if we're finished discussing, then Judy, why don't you do roll call?
All right. Osterholm,
Yes.
DeVore Leonard,
Yes?
Green,
Yes.
Zaremski,
Yes.
Stiles.
Yes. Okay. This has been approved. I think it's really important that Brian and Nicole, that you have listened to your neighbors and that you try to do anything to mitigate the issues that they have and be open to talking to them. And perhaps if there are things that they're concerned about, get them all together, talk about it. Not with a mediator, because I don't think the mediator works that way. But I don't think that these people you're gonna need a mediator. I hope. Any other business at this point? Do we have anything for agenda planning?
Goals.
Gavin?
Goals?
Okay. What you guys said.
Do we have anything on for the schedule? Anything coming up?
Pending what happens tomorrow, we might have a conditional use hearing for an accessory dwelling unit at 114 South Walnut. That's contingent on tomorrow.
Okay. Okay, is there anything else the commission wants to talk about?
No?
If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.